This podcast is produced by the Center for Deployment Psychology at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. The views expressed are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Uniformed Services University, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. In addition, references to any specific companies, products, processes, or services does not necessarily constitute or imply endorsement by the Uniformed Services University, the Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. Welcome to CDP's podcast, Practical for Your Practice,
where we give you actionable intel to support what you do, one colleague to another. Hello, everyone, and welcome to CDP's Practical for Your Practice. I'm Corinne Lefkowitz, here with my favorite co-hosts, Kevin and Jenna.
You said me first this time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm about to drop off the podcast.
Oh, that's all it took.
I had the urge to have us do this like news reporters, like, I'm Corinne Lefkowitz and I'm Jenna Ermold.
Or like when they do like the latest news reporters that I've heard, they all have their signature style of saying their name too, right? Like
really?
Oh man, it's kind of crazy. Maybe
we'll work on that for next season.
Yeah.
Season 8.
Season 8. Check back for season 8 when we will be news reporter style. But for now, we are on season 7. And, I always ask the same question to start, but the thing is, the question I'm going to ask is the whole point of today's show.
Oh.
How are you guys? How are you doing?
This will be our first 3-hour episode, I think.
So I'm not supposed to just say fine.
You're not supposed to say just fine unless you truly are fine. But the reality is that, I don't know if you've all noticed, but the world's a little askew right now. Things are a little
One
stressful.
might say cray-cray.
Cray. There's some other word that kids are using that I don't remember right now.
Yeah.
But it's things are a bit stressful, at least in my universe. And
I hadn't noticed.
I just was wondering if other people were feeling like me, and if so, if we could talk about it for a while.
Yes.
No,
I think it's an interesting point that you make, though. Like, we all, I think, are accustomed to answering that question with a blow off, right? Like, oh, I'm fine. Things are good. Things are fine. And most of the time we don't actually have the conversation of how people are actually doing, unless we're in, like a specific structured therapy session or.
As I say, which is really funny considering that we are all mental health professionals
Exactly.
who encourage others to talk about their feelings and how they're doing. But if there's one thing that I've learned along the way is, we're maybe not great at the practice of self-care and getting support from one another. And so I thought there might be some listeners out there who feel similarly.
Yeah.
And maybe we can model something different for a change.
Well, and especially with our listeners, mostly we assume being behavioral health providers, I feel like there's this additional layer. So we're in the world that's distressing right now, and we're sitting with a lot of distress. So it's kind of like distress squared, if you will. And, while we have ways to manage, we're hopefully good at compartmentalizing and stuff. When it builds and it builds and it builds and it's everywhere, it can really start to feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is that we as mental health providers have a harder time doing that? Like talking about how we're doing, but also like self-care and those kinds of things. Like we had an episode about this in season 1. So like a while ago, I think in a lot of our training workshops, we nominally gloss over self-care and how important that is, right?
One slide at the end.
Right.
And make sure you take care of
usually,
yourself.
like, we don't have enough time to talk about this, but you guys know
sorry,
this
we can't
important.
talk about this today, but think about self-care. It's really important. Bye.
Like, we do that a lot. Like, we short shrift self-care a lot. I just wondered if you had thoughts about why we do that.
Well, I think it's part of the helper identity, right? So, when we are in the service of others, or, that's kind of how there's something that drew us to this profession. And, many of the behavioral health providers I have worked with have this amazing value of putting others above themselves.
Mm-hmm.
However, that's obviously, a vulnerability, I mean, as well, because what it does is it prevents us from doing the things that to take care of ourselves or to, make a medical appointment or,
Hmm.
do some of the things that we know are actually protective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that there's this expectation that as behavioral health providers, we have it all figured out. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just realizing with friends of mine, colleagues of mine who maybe aren't in this field, when we're talking about how things are going in the world, they say things like, "Oh, you must be really busy right now. Business must be good for you." But they never ask, "How are you
You,
doing?"
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how am I doing? It's sort of this notion of like, "Oh, well, you've got this all figured out. I don't need to ask how you're
This is
doing."
your
And
bread and butter.
yeah,
Like
right. You should be
these are
happy
high
the
times
world
for
is on
you.
fire. You're
I mean,
making
you
good
guys, I
money.
do, but I don't know about you guys.
Right. I feel I was gonna say something just like what you said, Corinne, but from the other side of it too. Like I think I have a certain amount of imposter syndrome at
Mm,
times because I feel like if I don't have my stuff together, if I don't have it all figured out, then who am I to be helping
right.
somebody who needs that, right? Like do I have any credibility as a therapist if I don't have just all my stuff together, or if there's things that are bothering me, or if I'm finding areas that I'm not doing well in? So, I think sometimes there's this hesitancy to part the curtain a little and, kind of
Hmm.
reveal like, hey, guess what? We're humans too, and we struggle with stuff and probably not very dissimilar from the stuff we're working with our clients on. So to Jenna's point too, the stress squared and all of
Hmm.
that. But there's that sense of like, man, if I don't have it all together and not like exude togetherness, maybe there's something maybe that says something about my ability to help others.
And that's another layer
Yes.
Hmm.
because we know what we should be doing, right? So, like, then in echoing in
Yeah.
my head, when there's like, let's say I'm having a parent-child thing or a parent-adolescent thing, like, I know what I should be doing via the textbook or what an EBP for XYZ would be, but the lived experience of that. So I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing is sometimes I think like, oh, I actually wish I knew less. Like I wish I could just be a parent and not bring this other side of my brain into it that's judging what I'm doing because I'm not
Right.
doing it as I know I should be doing it because it's really hard to do that all the time. So it's a lot of pressure.
So it's actually stress cubed, is what you're saying.
Stress cube.
It's
Yeah.
a
We're
stress
looking for
cube. It's a stress cube,
we're looking
which
for
Yeah.
will.
more dimensions now. Yeah.
Well, okay, so can we just like nip this in the bud right now and actually answer the question, how are you right now? And I'll even go first. How am I? I'm tired and I feel very much on edge almost all of the time.
Mm.
And that
Mm.
is how I'm doing. How are you doing?
Ditto.
Yeah. I was gonna say, can I just say the same thing?
Yeah, I think the on edge piece, which I don't, I mean, t fatigue, I feel like I have been fatigued since I gave birth to children 20 years ago. Um, but I can deal with fatigue. I don't like the on edge. I don't like that piece. Because
Yeah.
when I feel on edge, I also feel like things are coming from me at all directions and I feel a little bit out of control. And as Corinne and Kevin might know, that's an uncomfortable feeling for me.
Only for you. The
As a
rest of us are
type
Mhm.
very
as a type
comfortable.
A individual, I don't do well with that.
I'd say something similar that feeling a little overwhelmed at times just because I feel like all of us, regardless of where we're working, are being asked to do more with less,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yes.
more and more and more and more stuff, but with fewer and fewer resources or hours in the day or whatever. And at the same time, and not, I'm trying to be very apolitical here, but man, there's a lot going on. And
Mhm.
I often have the thought like this has got to be an alternate reality, right? Like, how did
Right.
we, how are we where we're at?
Mhm.
And, kind of struggling with all sorts of things, just, day-to-day impact on our lives, but also like, where things are misaligning with my own values and just,
Mhm.
feeling the stress of that. Um, even the impact on relationships, whether that's extended
Mm,
family or collegial relationships, that that things have become it's such at a high temperature for everything. There's a lot of
hmm
stress coming from that too.
Hmm. And you started to mention how it's impacting work, that you said, we're being asked to do more with less.
Hmm.
And I wondered that, I wanted to know how you guys were doing personally. And then also, what do you think is this having any impact on the work that you do?
Yeah, I I think you all already know this. Maybe our listeners would be shocked to hear this, but I feel like, the three of us, and certainly there are lots of other people at the Center for Deployment Psychology that are the same way, where it's like we're kind of the people that are going to try to figure out how to get to yes. And so, like we're being asked to do more with less, but at the same time, we're the types of people that are going to do it anyway. So I think that kind of adds some stress too. Like I have a hard time, to be honest, of setting boundaries and holding them, of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and this is as much as I can do and no more. And so I think it impacts my work because that doesn't help me be a better, more effective, worker or whatever. But it also impacts kind of my own health and mental
Yeah.
health and such, because too it's just like I feel like I've got to figure out how to squeeze out that extra drop or two from the stone, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's important work and it needs to get done. I imagine people who work in various different circumstances might feel something similar too. Like, we have a huge capacity problem in mental health, and at least in the United States, we have a lot more people who need that care and support than there's room to get it. And when I'm not right now, but when I was doing a private practice for a while, I was really feeling like I need to open up more slots because more
Yeah.
people need it, and somehow thinking my two or three extra slots was going to impact this capacity problem. But
Yeah.
just that same sense, right? We got to squeeze more out of this. We got to get more efficiency out of it, and that's stressful too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think too, I don't like when that feeling of overwhelm and stress and being um, overtasked results in me acting in ways or not in ways with my values. So an
Mhm.
example today was we had, with the government, the briefer, but thankfully the government shut down, we had to pause social media posting, which is like not a big deal, right? But my reaction was, kind of really negative yesterday. Was like, oh, this is coming at the worst time, and we're not going to be able to advertise about the EBP conference, and we do a lot of advertising through that. Meanwhile, people are on furlough, right?
Right.
Like that is so not important, and I don't want to be that person. I don't like that's. I want to maintain the big picture view and not get bent out of shape about these small things. But I think that's the result of feeling overwhelmed and overtasked and um,
I
you know,
cannot thank you enough for saying that. I feel like you just described my experience, that I've been so like negative in my viewpoint about things when in fact, yes, things are stressful comparatively. I don't have a lot of big rock issues going on in my life.
mhm.
So then I but then I end up feeling cranky and then feeling guilty for feeling
Right.
cranky,
Right.
right? And then beating myself up, and then
Right.
so that spirals as well. But
Like
so
if your stress isn't as bad as so and so's, then it's not valid stress too, right?
which
Like
sounds
that,
like something that we talk about in
right?
treatment, doesn't it?
My children definitely call me out on so we're talking about upward versus downward comparisons, right?
Hmm.
So, I was giving the example the other day, my one of my kiddos is just struggling and having a hard time kind of seeing everybody else is doing better and more advanced in their collegiate stuff at XYZ, and I sort of gave this example of, if I'm 5'4" for our listeners. If I always compare myself to people who are 5'7", I'm always going to be short, right? Like, so you have to also like think about where are you really, and I think this is a time where that gratitude of at least I'm 5'4", right? Or if that's something I value, I don't really care how tall I am, uh, but you get the point that
Right.
sometimes we need to pause and take stock of I do have a job. I do have colleagues I adore. I do have projects that, keep me fired up. Yes, there's trackers, and yes, there's more trackers and things and all this stuff. But um,
That felt very specific.
what?
Right.
But how do you leverage gratitude in these moments? So I know that doesn't really,
No,
we're winding all over the place.
I think that's relevant though, because I think I've heard it said, and you all can probably tell what the source is, but like comparison is the thief of joy or something like
Right.
that, right?
Mhm.
Like when we're spending our time kind of comparing what we have or what we're doing with everybody else, that really robs us of just enjoying what it is, enjoying that
Yeah.
moment. And, very, very act consistent, I think, right? Contact with the present
Mhm.
moment and that. But it, I find myself doing the same thing, right? But I'm comparing against only one direction,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
that's when it gets stressful too. Yeah.
I I am having similar experiences to all of you, both personally and professionally. I'll add one thing that I've noticed recently as in my clinician role, in my private practice role, as you know, I do a lot of insomnia work. I'm
Hmm.
also noticing that it's getting harder to get people to get good sleep
Mm.
Mm.
because of everything. Everybody's stressed.
Right.
What?
And even the best treatment out there, CBTI, hey, love to do it, and it works really well. But at the moment, I'm having to tell people routinely, like, yeah, kind of makes sense that you were really stressed out that night. And even
Yeah.
though you're doing really well, it was hard to fall asleep because, by the way, it was hard for me to fall asleep too.
Hmm.
So it's just trickling down across the board, and I have found that it is causing me to need to be more realistic about what the goals are and what progress might look like at the moment in terms of clinical work.
Oh, I was going to say, in terms of yourself, that's amazing.
In terms of
No, just clinical
myself.
work.
No, I
Yeah.
mean, your point is well taken, too, because I was thinking one of the things that's pretty common in work with folks who are having difficulty with sleep is, you know, kind of maybe loosening the hold a bit on expectations for
Yeah.
what you need to do, right? So like the times that I haven't been sleeping well lately, I have to remind myself not to be like, I gotta have 8 hours, I'm gonna be falling apart and this is awful. Um, it is kind of understandable and maybe even normal right now that people are
Hmm.
having difficulty with sleep given all the things going on
And we
in
can
our
also
lives and our
compare
world.
that to folks who are dealing with trauma. Like
Yep.
as
Hmm.
they're watching trauma unfold around them, it's not surprising that even if they were doing really, really well for months, things might temporarily be worse. And that
Yeah.
might be expectable given the environment.
Yep. Yep.
And I imagine that, just a big piece about what behavioral health providers can do right now is just validate that, right? That like
Hmm.
Hmm.
put words to it. It makes sense to me that,
Yeah.
given XYZ, things have been even harder for you. Because I think that's, whether we're talking personally or whether we're talking clinically, the default is what's wrong with me? Why can't I handle this? Why am I
Yeah.
falling apart right now? Why, and always everybody else is doing fine. Why is this impacting me so
Right.
much? And so if we can, really kind of support the message of in the context of what's happening in the world and in your community or in your life, um, it doesn't surprise me that things may be a
Yeah.
little bump harder.
All right, we've now covered a lot of the negative, which is exactly what I wanted, by the way, weirdly. I wanted us to talk about how we were actually feeling. So thank you for doing that
Well, and I
with
think it's
me.
worth saying, hey, for the listeners that are listening too, maybe you're hearing some of this and you're going, oh my gosh, yeah, me too. Or maybe you're
Mhm.
thinking about your own struggles. That's
Yep.
totally valid. Like, I think
Yep.
we need to give ourselves space to acknowledge real things.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I wanted to have this discussion today. 'Cause I know it's not just us feeling some of these things, we're thinking some of these ways. But we're helpers, so we also have to talk about what we're doing to take care of ourselves, or to take care of each other. So, curious, is there anything that is working for either of you right now? Ways that you have found to take care of yourselves?
I'll mention one thing, and that is along with that whole idea of imposter syndrome and kind of feeling like we have to have our stuff all together. I will tell you that I started individual therapy about 6 months ago, probably for
Mhm.
the first time in my life.
Hmm.
And not that I've, not that I've never needed, yeah, any kind of support or care, but most of the time I would kind of convince myself like, no, you're doing probably okay. And, certainly not as bad as, other folks are having it right now. Um, and even that sense of like, gosh, if I go to therapy, what does that mean about me? Like I'm supposed to be the one dispensing the therapy and not being a consumer of it. And I'll tell you, it's been fantastic. And,
Nice.
That's
and not
cool.
because I have like some, I mean, not that I care if, if I did, but like, not because I have some raging, big diagnostic entity going on, but just kind of
Hmm.
like, what? We spend so much time sitting with other people's stuff and like really being in a way, I don't mean this like it's good therapy, but in a way we're sometimes the receptacle of
Hmm.
some pretty
Hmm.
difficult stuff. And there's not as many opportunities, I think, unless we're doing it intentionally, purposefully, for some time to be given for our stuff.
Hmm.
And it's nice just to have a set aside time to just think about and talk about my stuff, if that makes
And
sense.
I'm just gonna go on a limb, probably being forced to talk about your
Right?
stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like
Well, and
you
I
can't get out of it.
I made a point to tell this therapist when we first did our initial consult, about what I was looking for. I'm like, look, other times when I've seen a counselor, a therapist, and it didn't last very long, I felt like most of the time they're like, oh, you're so right, man. Yep, you're looking at everything the right way. Hey, you're doing great, which may be helpful in certain circumstances. Um, but for me, I kind of needed. I told them, I'm like, I need you to call me out of my crap. Like,
Hmm.
and I need you to not be shy about that because otherwise I'm gonna blow you off. Like,
Hmm.
I already think I'm right. I don't need you validating that. I need you to find my blind spots and help me see those and
Mm,
work with that.
Really
So,
glad you're doing that for yourself.
yeah.
And thank
thank
you
you.
for sharing that with everybody.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
I'll go next.
Sure.
So I have been intentional about trying to schedule stuff for myself that I know is going to force me to check out and
Hmm.
like put my brain on something else fun or have, you know, just use a different part of my brain. And so a while, well, I feel like this world has been troubled for quite some time now, but I was gonna say like last year or the year, I can't remember when I did it, but I signed up for a stand-up comedy class where I had to like show up.
Oh, I love
I
this.
had to write content. I had to perform the content. I was
But
with
you're not
other
funny, so how
veterans.
did that go?
It was, it was uncomfortable mostly for other people. Um, it was great for me. But I'll put the link actually for any of you who work with, I think I've mentioned this before, but military connected clients, or if you're a veteran yourself, it's a fantastic organization called ASAP, and I can't remember what that stands for, but they offer free classes online and in certain regions on things like improv and stand up and art and photography and like it's
That's
awesome.
really cool.
So it's a great way if you're working with somebody who is wanting to do something but maybe doesn't know how to take that step, highly encourage that. The other thing, and you'll notice there's a theme with these. Like if I have to show up, I will show up. So that
Hmm.
I know about myself.
Mm,
I play pickleball with some of my friends. I call them my rock moms because my son's in School of Rock and we're rock moms. But I schedule the courts. So I book our courts where I live. And if I do that, I have to show up and I have to go play pickleball for 2 hours and like have
Hmm.
fun
mm,
doing that. So I think when we have that value of putting others before
Yeah.
ourselves, like for me, one strategy to protect against that vulnerability is to schedule or have a class or show up because then I'll do it. And ultimately it's like I have to get the dose then.
mm.
Um, and that's been working out well for me.
I like that a lot because, it kind of, again, it like structures it in.
Yeah.
And especially when you'd say that that's something about yourself that once it's scheduled you're going to show up. I know for me the pull would be to be like, well, I need to get more in, and so that's the easiest flex point is to
Yeah.
maybe start dropping that stuff off. And so another that I've been thinking a lot about is, and I mentioned this already, I need to be more thoughtful about setting boundaries and holding them, like not letting parts of my life leak over into other parts of my life that are just as valid.
Hmm.
So, I really appreciate that. You're talking about scheduling that and holding that. I need to do that better. Like identify where my boundaries are and then hold them and be okay with that.
Hmm.
What about you, Corinne? We know
Yeah,
you tap dance. That's from an episode ago.
thank you for reminding everybody about that. That's great.
We've had a listener request a video, just saying.
That
Well,
was
that's
me.
not happening for my own sanity and self-care. But I was going to mention it because it is a similar notion of I do take a tap class and I love it. And I love the women who are in the tap class with me and the man who's in the tap class with me. And it's scheduled and I pay for it. I pay a good chunk of
Yes.
money
Mm,
for it. And so even though, especially in the winter, nighttime rolls around, it's really tempting to just stay on the couch under some covers, but I paid for that class and I told people that I was going to be there, so I get up and go. And
mm,
so I fully,
Hmm.
fully understand that piece of needing to be held accountable for it. In general, I tend, like my self-care tends to be much more being more physically active. And as I've also talked about, running is a thing that I do for myself, but I have not been able to
mm.
because of the awful weather and the snow
Yeah.
apocalypse that we've had for the past month, literally. So I've not been able to do that, and I realized I'd been more cranky than usual.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I do have a new way that I've been taking care of myself, which is like pretty embarrassing, and so I'm definitely going to share it, which is I got re-addicted to Candy Crush Saga, and I'm actually not at all embarrassed about it.
Wow.
I'm actually very proud of myself because I got a new phone and it was already loaded in, and I could have deleted it, but instead, I was like, you know what? This is the most mindless, colorful, fun game ever. And I don't
Awesome.
usually give myself permission to just sit on a couch and play video games.
Mm.
But I've
Practical
been,
Fear Practice receives no endorsement from Candy Crush. Is not endorsing Candy Crush, nor do we
That'll help
receive
it
money
get through
from
but we
them.
would
PAO.
like
Thank you.
to, but we would like to. Um, or any game that is colorful and fun and potentially
Having to do with
addictive.
sweet treats, yes.
Who doesn't like a sweet treat? Anyway, I've been giving myself
Mm.
permission for a half hour a day if I want to, until I run out of lives, to play the stupidest, the most engaging, fun, lighthearted game I can find.
You can tell this is not a commercial
It's
because,
not a
yeah.
commercial. I would have practiced better.
I love it.
I think that's another one that I love too. It's like finding those things, those activities that they don't have to be meaningful, right? Like they just need to be enjoyable. Not that they need to take over your life. I can find myself getting stuck in avoidance, sometimes playing,
Hmm.
whether it's a mindless game on my phone or whatever. But I think it's okay to give ourselves permission to do some of that. Like I'm finding a couple of shows that are streaming that I'm really enjoying, and I'm making sure that I'm not just binging them all at once because I think that's not productive, but
Right.
allowing myself to say like I can do this because I enjoy it and it's okay because I've worked hard today,
hmm
is okay.
My husband walked by the other day and he's like, "Are you okay? You look like you're really zoned out and withdrawn." And I'm like, "Oh, that's because I've been playing Candy Crush for 45 minutes with a cat on my lap and I've never been happier." So I'm happy to be withdrawn.
It's valid.
I
I
am
think,
more
and
than
I,
okay.
I think an extension of that, not necessarily Candy Crush part, but or the game that has to do with candying on a phone. But I think that obviously these are things we're doing in our personal life, but I
Hmm.
think one thing that has helped me too is if I keep my like finger on the pulse of my team and I like
Yeah.
notice that my team's seeming um, Corinne and I like to talk about stress first aid, and in stress
hmm
first aid, we have the stress continuum from green to red. You can do the math, green, yellow, orange, red. My team was feeling very toasty orange and just not doing well. I could just see it, sense it. And we just had like a little huddle where we all came together and talked about like all these things are coming down. All the, like I said, another new trucker is coming down, another new thing's coming down. And we just kind of talked about what was, we did some like practical stuff where we understood the function of it better and like actually looked at it, but then we also just sort of talked about what else is going on and setting boundaries, not checking email on the weekend,
Mm.
hmm
especially at 1 in the morning, not, there,
Wait, we're not
but
supposed to do that?
we're not supposed to do that apparently. Yeah.
Kevin.
But I think it was good to just like have an informal moment to do that. And it was literally right before this, so it was very fortuitous. But we also then learned some like pretty funny personal things that were going on.
Hmm.
And our amazing admin, Bree Mercer, who helps us with this podcast and schedules guests and does a lot of things, she's got a bird issue going on right now, man. That's stressful. There's pigeons. And first it was two, then it was four. Now she's up to eight pigeons roosting above her bedroom window. And I have every intention of, as soon as we're done here, jumping on Amazon and sending her an air horn, because my solution is if she just periodically opens the window and blasts the air horn, she's going to be good to go. But by the end of the meeting, we had multiple people had admitted a bird phobia and had told bird stories.
Right.
And I feel like, again, there we brought out the human side of each other. We normalized everybody was stressed. We talked about make sure you set those boundaries. I reinforced like you can put your chat on red and like and list and say, oh, the word's gonna escape me now. Not devoted work. What was the word I used, Kevin?
I'm trying to remember now.
Uh,
Immersed work or
Immersed
Pro-
work, no,
Protected
undistracted, yeah, like focused work, whatever.
focus.
You know what
That,
I'm
yeah.
trying to say. Like if you put your thing on red and say focused, focused time, focused work, I will protect against. I will. You are protected, and you can focus and you can do your work. You don't have to be with all the notifications and all the pings and all the things as we're feeling upregulated and stressed and already on edge, to your point, Corinne. The
Mhm.
more we're poked, the more that sort of drives that. And so I think there's like little things we can do to take care of ourselves in the work context, but also in the home context.
Well, taking care of each other too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which maybe briefly we could talk about that. Are there ways that you've been taking care of others, not your clients, but people who you care? Well, that didn't sound right. People in your personal world.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm a very bad clinician. I'm
How
gonna
about
get
I
some
help you out here?
angry
How,
comments here.
yeah.
Um, how are you taking care? How are we taking care of each other? And Jenna, that was a really
That's
good
kind of my
example.
example. I'm
Yeah,
done with mine. Check.
yeah.
Yeah. I I really do think that it's important to create that space, right? Whether it's with, folks that we supervise or colleagues or whoever, like creating that space where it's okay to decompress for a minute and be real. I get one theme for me that I've been working on a lot more lately is authenticity. And I don't mean to suggest that I'm usually a fake person, but um, like we started off with, right? When somebody asks you how are you doing, and we reflexively say fine,
Hmm.
that's kind of like the social contract, right? Like please don't burden me with your stuff. Just tell me you're fine and we'll move on. But there are people in your life that are interested and supportive, and you can be that kind of person for people in your life too, where it's okay not to just say fine. Like there's something connecting about being a real, authentic person. And I'm not saying do this with your clients because they're not there to hear your problems. That would be unethical. They're here, with the focus on them. But there are other situations, whether that is a formalized like consultation kind of a
Mm,
situation, or if that's just you've got, a good friend or two at work that you can support each other and just really have, maybe it's just a periodic, call where you talk to each other about what's really happening, what's authentically going on. That feels a lot more connecting than just saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're good? Yep, I'm good. Yay." But really, yeah, have feel like somebody else is helping carrying some of that burden as well. Allow that for ourselves. We can be that for other people, and it's okay for us to make use of that too.
Kevin, that actually reminded me what I wanted to say, which was way back a long time ago, I did a self-care course, and I found an article, and I have got to find this article, but it was looking at self-care to protect against burnout and compassion fatigue and to increase compassion satisfaction. And one of the most protective things that somebody could do was actually engage in EBP work
Mm,
because
yeah,
Hmm.
it clients got better, right? So if you're actually practicing evidence-based psychotherapy, that was protective and against burnout. And I think that's an important message, especially on this podcast, given that that's
Yeah.
what we talk about. But
yeah,
want to foot stomp that. that as you start to feel frazzled, or if you start to feel like the wheels are coming off, remember, come back tight into your EBP work, get that consultation that's offered, so that you can feel supported in that. Maybe you sign up for another EBP, to take one to inspire you to do additional EBP work. But that is actually, it's great. I think like they were like, yeah, it's great if you exercise, it's great if you eat well, but if you really want to impact burnout,
Mm,
this is what we recommend. So kudos to everybody who's listened to this podcast, who's
yeah.
committed to doing EBP work.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
I'll also mention too, though, it sometimes can be kind of what we'll say it like a throwaway kind of thing, but all the stuff that we tell our clients as well about, like what Jenna just said, eating well, getting exercise, prioritizing sleep, those things really have a bigger impact than sometimes we admit. And I'll mention my kid is, dealing with a kind of a not a serious, but a relatively minor medical issue. Went to the doctor just yesterday, and the first thing they ask is, "How are you eating? How are you sleeping?" And interestingly, they were a little annoyed by that. They're like, "It's not about what I'm eating," but maybe it is because we do know that there's a big impact on, are we eating okay? Are we sleeping okay? Are we um are we doing those regenerative things, recognizing that not everybody is going to have access to all of those things in the same way. So I'm not suggesting, that that's somebody's fault or whatever, if but working within, what's available to us, if we can focus a little bit on eating a little better, taking time for ourselves, exercising a bit, getting good sleep, that can have huge impact and huge payoff for our
Mhm.
health too.
Well, I don't think that I mentioned what I have been doing for others or trying to do for others because it's really the main thing that I try to do was have this conversation. So this is it. This is
Hmm.
what I'm doing to help others. I'm forcing you to talk about how you're feeling and forcing myself to talk about it. But
Nice.
it honestly brings me to what I think is like if we're gonna select a sin, or if I was gonna select a
Mm.
sin when it comes to
Mm.
self-care, I think the sin is not prioritizing it. And like we talked about at the very beginning, both of you, we always have it as a throwaway comment. We do these trainings, and the last couple of slides are don't forget to take care of yourself,
Yep.
but we can't talk about that today. Or asking, how are you
Hmm.
doing? Fine, fine, everything's fine, living the dream, everything's good. So to me, the sin is not making space to have these conversations, not
Yeah.
talking about it. But that's just my vote. Do you all have different sins?
Yeah, I think I would go with that one, that we tend to short shrift. I mean, the whole point is of this podcast, we short shrift it, and I love that example in our training is that happens. I don't love that it happens. I love that
Yeah.
we have that example. And I'll just add, we know what works. We don't have to be perfect at applying it, but we should remember that it applies to us as much as it does to the other people in our lives, whether they're clients or colleagues, and just so the sin would be drift when it comes to ourself, right?
Mm.
So like we're intentional and use EBP type stuff with others, but we can drift when it comes to us, and let's like protect against drift.
I'm not sure that mine is really that different than what both of you have already said. I think for me, one of the sins maybe that we can take from this would be not allowing ourselves, not recognizing that we are human.
Mhm.
You know, like we were saying at the beginning, I think sometimes we hold ourselves to a standard of being superhuman because we're in a helping profession. And it is okay, not just okay, it's desirable to recognize and allow ourselves that space to be human with flaws, with shortcomings, with stressful days, with, all that stuff. Um, we don't have to exclude ourselves from, being liable to being human just because of the work that we do.
I've really appreciated this conversation. I don't know about you, I feel calmer than when we started. I walked into this on edge, like I said. I feel a little bit calmer, and I thank you both for that. Um,
Appreciate it too.
thinking about our format, we usually end with actionable intel.
Incoming actionable
I
intel.
guess I do have a couple of things that come to mind based on our conversation.
Mhm.
Um, I think Kevin, you just summed them all up. Do the things that we know work, that we know is good self-care. But I've also been, it reminded me, talking with you all reminded me of the stress as a team sport
Hmm.
episode that we
Yeah.
had with Gabe Paoletti a little while ago. Um, I think folks should listen to that as well if they want to continue to talk about self-care and stress management. I think that's
Mhm.
another good resource.
And
What
halloumi.
else?
And
Halloumi.
halloumi. And now you'll have to listen
Halloumi.
to the episode to figure out how halloumi made it into that
Halloumi.
episode. Yeah, I think know what we all know ourselves best, and take that into consideration as you're figuring out one or two things to do for yourself with self-care.
I'd say make those connections, you
Yeah.
know, with both colleagues, but also people who are not at work. Um, those relationships are important. Cultivating those relationships can be a lifesaver.
But what if
And
your best friends are on the podcast with you? What do you do then, Kevin?
Then you have the best of both worlds.
the best problem ever. Well, on that note, seriously, thank you both for having this conversation with me.
Thank you
I
for
hope,
forcing us.
yeah.
I was resistant at first. I
You
admit it.
know, Jenna, I was
I know.
not going to call you out. I stopped
Uh-huh.
myself, but
Uh-huh.
now that you brought it up, another sin is thinking you have nothing to say on the topic.
Well, it felt like one more thing.
Ooh.
It felt like one more thing, and I wasn't supposed to be on this one. So
I wasn't even supposed to be
dragged me into
here.
it. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came. Thank you for showing up as you always do. Thank you to our listeners. We want to hear from you, of course,
Hmm.
about how you're doing.
Yeah,
And if you have things that are helping you to cope with whatever is going on in your life right now, we want to hear about it. Ways that you're helping each other, we want to hear about that too. Or if you just want to be authentic within reason in the comments, please, we would love to hear from you.
we would.
Thank you all for listening, and thank you both for being with me today.
Thank you.
And until next time,
Stay curious.
And mind your EVPs.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
bye.
Remember, we love hearing from our listeners, so leave us a message on SpeakPipe or send us an email. Both can be found in our show notes. Our theme music is Failed Attempts by Nitro, and our administrative assistant is Bree Mercer.
Thanks for listening to Practical for Your Practice.
If you like what you're hearing, please feel free to follow us, rate this episode, and share it with others.
Until next time.